City of Northglenn, Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.
I will now call to order the regular City Council meeting of September the 9th, 2019. Joanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Escabel,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Leidy,
Here.
Councilmember Sowers will be absent, Councilmember Rodriguez,
Here.
Councilmember Downing,
Here.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Whitman,
Here.
Councilmember Duran Mullica,
Here.
Councilmember Wilford.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. City Manager Guyer, are there any responses to citizens' inquiry?
Yes, Mayor Escabel. This evening, I have our August CRM monthly stats to share with council and the public. We are at a point in the year where in 2018, we launched our CRM system, so now we are able to start utilizing month-to-month comparisons in usage. So for August 2019, we had 105 requests opened. That was an increase of 5 over 2018. We had 130 requests closed, which was up by 35. The primary method, we had 45% of our citizens utilize the website, which was down 5%. 17% were entered by an employee via phone or email, and that was down 6%. And then we had 38% usage on our mobile app, and that was up by 11% over last August. Our top 4 topics requested this August included graffiti, parks conditions, general code enforcement concerns, abandoned vehicles on public property, and that was pretty consistent with last year, less requests for new trash carts. And then in terms of closeout, 54 of these requests were closed out between 0 and 3 days. 31 were closed out 4 to 7 days. 1 was closed out between 8 and 11 days, and then 7 were closed out within 12 days. So those are the stats for August 2019. And as I mentioned, we'll continue to start sharing month to month, year over year trends that we see with the use of the CRM.
Thank you. Sure.
Heather, I'm kind of curious, you know the ones that I submitted, and then they were closed automatically. They said they had gone to they shouldn't have gone through CRM. They should have gone, in different areas. Do those count as being closed in less than a day? Or do they count as canceled? Do we keep any record of ones that are
If they're
canceled?
entered into the CRM, they would be counted based on the number of days it took to close it. So I can't tell you off the top of my head. The
So
ones
it
that
counts
you
like a close even though nothing's really done to it.
No, the item won't be closed unless it's completely finished. So there's closure to the request. So if an item, a complaint or an issue was submitted via the CRM or associated with your profile on the CRM, you should be getting a notification letting you know when the item is closed.
We did get the notification that it was closed just about 15 minutes after we submitted it. So I think the question that I have is when we close on that quickly, because it should have been a call to the police department in this case, does that count as being closed, or do we count things that are canceled?
That sounds awfully quick to submit and then get a closure, so it depends on the item. sometimes things can be closed out relatively quickly, but I would need to find out more information from you on what that looked like. So if we could talk offline, I
Okay.
can do some research and figure
I'll
that out.
send you an email.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. We're going to do 6 recognitions, and then we will do the healing powwow on Constitution, I'm sorry, just the healing powwow anniversary. Council will join me down below, but after we do the proclamation, when the dancers come in, come back up because we have limited space. That's cool. I turned on the microphone and the light came on. Caused me to look up there and say, what's going on here? Our first proclamation is for David Britton. David? David, this proclamation says, whereas the city of Northglenn celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is celebrating residents whose contributions have positively affected the city and the lives of others, and whereas David Britton has been a neighborhood watch volunteer for more than 10 years. David knows his neighbors and builds community by engaging with his neighbors. Whereas David puts away his neighbors' trash cans and always lends a helping hand to others, and whereas David has gone above and beyond to make the difference to inspire others, and whereas David has positively impacted the lives and living conditions of individuals in the community at large, therefore I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate David Britton on being honored by his fellow residents, City Council, and myself for his contributions to the City of Northglenn, dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 9th day of September. Congratulations. In a good way. We say in a good way. Okay, congratulations. Meet our council.
That's it, is that it for David? Yeah.
And I know those balloons are not for me, right? That's awesome, David, thank you. Our next proclamation is for Christine Crabtree. Is Christine in the? Good. We're going to try this a little different this time, Christine. The proclamation reads, whereas the city of Northglenn celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is celebrating residents whose contributions have positively affected the city and the lives of others, and whereas Christine Crabtree is an active member of the community who assists others by providing rides to church, shopping for those who need, and visiting with her neighbors. And whereas Christine is described as a flurry of activity, that is cool, and always being there to do whatever needs doing. And whereas Christine serves the community through her work at the Immaculate Heart of Mary Food Bank and also assists individuals at the Senior Support Services Center. And whereas Christine was involved with Special Olympics and contributes to the support activities within the disabled community, and whereas Christine volunteers ism extends outside of Northglenn. In June of this year, she drove a U-Haul trailer filled with items that she collected from the community to the borders near El Paso, Texas, to provide assistance to individuals in need. And whereas Christine has gone above and beyond to make a difference and help others, and whereas Christine has positively impacted the lives and living conditions of individuals and the community at large, now therefore I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate Christine Crabtree for being honored by fellow residents, City Council, and myself, and her contribution to the City of Northglenn, dated in Northglenn, Colorado, 9th day of September 2019. Congratulations, Christine. It's your turn to lead our council. These proclamations get smaller, or maybe I should fold them, I don't know. Come on down, Joe Dunn. You're the next contestant. Good, I'm good. Proclamation reads, whereas the City of Northglenn celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is celebrating residents whose contributions have positively affected the city and the lives of others, and whereas Priscilla Joe Dunn, forget the Priscilla I know, established and maintains the Tai Chi classes at the senior center to benefit the well-being of the city's seniors, and whereas Joe is an advocate for the benefits of Tai Chi for seniors, which has been shown to reduce stress, improve the symptoms and medical conditions, provide pain relief, and improve the overall well-being. And whereas Joe positively impacts the health of the community and its residents, both physically and mentally, and whereas Joe serves as a role model for her students and those around her with her dedication and positive outlook, and whereas Joe has gone above and beyond to make a difference and inspire others. Joe has positively impacted the lives and living conditions of individuals in the community at large. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate Joe Dunn for being honored by fellow residents, City Council, and myself for her contribution to the City of Northglenn, dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 9th day of September 2019. See if we can do this right. Got to smile.
I'm trying. There it is.
There we go.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Meet our council.
I'm giving kisses.
We love you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good. Thank you all.
Try not to mess this one up. Kelly and Charlene Moser. Kelly and Charlene Moser. Hi. You're fine. Proclamation reads, whereas the city of Northglenn celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is celebrating residents whose contributions have positively affected the city and the lives of others, whereas Kelly, Charlene, and their 3 children, where are the 3 children? Come on down. Three children have helped their elderly neighbors by shoveling snow in the winter, and whereas Kelly, Charlene, and the children are start over. Whereas Kelly and Charlene and children make helping the youth of Northglenn a priority. Charlene helps with those in need and assisting by mentoring individuals who are obtaining their GED or finding a job, and is always available to help those in need. Kelly volunteers as a baseball coach, positively impacts the children in the community, and whereas Kelly and Charlene are always available and offer their neighbors with rides to other activities that they may not be able to do on their own. And whereas Kelly and Charlene have gone above and beyond to make the difference and help others, whereas Kelly and Charlene positively impact the lives and living conditions of individuals and the community at large. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate Kelly, Charlene, and their children for being honored by fellow residents, City Council, and myself for their contributions to the City of Northglenn, dated this day in Colorado, Northglenn, Colorado, the 9th day of September 2019. Thank you for what you're doing. Babby Coachman. Babby? Proclamation reads, whereas the City of Northglenn celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is positively affected the city and the lives of others, and whereas Bobby Coachman, as an active and engaged member of her church, reaches out into the community to provide communion services to others, and whereas Babby visits individuals at the Sunny Acres Retirement Facility and has provided communion services to the residents for more than 30 years. Wow. Whereas Babby recognizes the importance of connecting with others and also visits with homebound residents, and whereas Babby shows great compassion, dedication, and faith while giving her time to serve and support those who may otherwise be alone and separated from their church community. And whereas Babby has gone above and beyond to make a difference and help others. And whereas Babby has positively impacted the lives and living conditions of individuals and community at large. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate Babby Coachman for being honored by fellow residents, City Council, and myself for her contribution to the City of Northglenn, dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 9th day of September 2019. Congratulations, Babby. Heather Pellier. Heather. Proclamation reads, whereas the city of Northglenn celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is celebrating residents whose contributions have positively affected the city and the lives of others, and whereas Heather Puligay serves on the Citizens Affair Board, providing a voice for residents and welcoming environment to consider new ideas and continually better the community. And whereas Heather is described as a wonderful person with an outstanding attitude and a commitment to others. And whereas Heather volunteers at events, gives her time and energy freely. And whereas Heather visits and helps seniors in the community and provides tutoring and literacy training to children. And whereas Heather has gone above and beyond to make a difference and inspire others. And whereas Heather has positively impacted the lives and living conditions of individuals and the community at large. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate Heather Puligay for being honored by fellow residents, City Council, and myself for her contribution to the City of Northglenn, dated in Northglenn, Colorado, this 9th day of September 2019. Doug Goodfeather. This has got a lot of words. That's a native way of saying it, a lot of writing. Proclamation reads, whereas Native Americans enrich our community with their presence, their contributions, music, dance, art, and customs, and the Lakota Way Healing Center has brought together Native Americans and the community to celebrate and share Native American history and culture by hosting the Healing Hoop Powwow at the Stonehawker Historic Property in Northglenn. And whereas the mission of the Lakota Way is to promote spiritual connection and wellness through indigenous ways of healing and spirituality, and the Lakota Way Healing Center provides services to people from all walks of life to find solutions for issues including health, sobriety, spiritual wellness, education, financial stability, and whereas the Healing Hoops Powwow was created in the spirit of togetherness and affirmation of Native American culture to provide a community event to honor the sacred connection of our community and the healing ceremony of dance and song. And whereas numerous non-Native residents have had their lives and their understanding and appreciation of American Indian culture enriched by their attendance at the Healing Hoop Powwow, and whereas the 5th annual Healing Hoop Powwow will be held September the 14th and 15th and will include a traditional special honor to all veterans who have served in our country. And whereas the City of Northglenn believes that cultural diversity strengthens the community, and the 2019 Healing Powwow will provide a venue of celebration of Native American culture, tradition, value, education opportunities for all who attend. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, do hereby recognize 5th anniversary of the Healing Hoop Powwow, and encourage everyone to attend the event to celebrate and learn about Native American history and culture, dated this day, Northglenn, Colorado, this 9th day of September 2019. And I want to say thank you for your service too. Thank you. Not just No, don't ever give a politician the microphone. This is not about politics. This recognition program kicked off this year, and it's amazing what people in this community are doing for people of this community. It just warms my heart to see all of this. And I want to say thank you to all of you who nominated people, all of you who accepted proclamations and awards, and keep it up. We only got a few months left. Maybe we'll continue it into 2020. Thank you.
Exactly.
Oh, you got the last one.
That's interesting. It sounds cute.
Well, it's an honors contest.
Just flip it upward. There you go.
Testing 1, 2. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the honor to bringing us here and allowing us to share our culture with you. I'd like to bring up the rest of the powwow committee. Felicia Alvarez is one of our powwow committee. Come on up here. We recognize our other powwow committee, Scott Gloyd and Carol Plain. I'm Doug Goodfeather. And we have dancers here. We have Robert Hawk. We have Rhea.
It's good to see you.
Raya Joyhart and Thomas Yellowhorse Davis. And we're part of the powwow committee and dancers here. So we're going to do a little performance with you. And first of all, before I get out of hand, I want to thank you for your time this evening. We are all honored to be here. My name is Doug Goodfeather, Executive Director of the Lakota Way Healing Center. The Lakota Way Healing Center doesn't focus on just one issue. We fight for sobriety, health, spiritual wellness, trauma, PTSD recovery, and financial stability of every person in our community. We are focused on creating a community based on community-led solutions that strengthen the cornerstone for a good quality of life, spiritual connection, education, financial stability, health, and community involvement. And we work with the people from all walks of life to turn those solutions into actions. But we don't do this alone. We're working alongside volunteers and donors. Our closest allies are people like you. We need your support to continue to make the annual Healing Hoop Powwow a great success for many years to come. We appreciate your continued support and assistance to bring this wonderful cultural experience to our home community. Please allow me to introduce one of our powwow committee members, first of all, and she's going to do the announcements for the dancer, Felicia Alvarez.
Hello, everybody. I just want to say, personally, I want to say thank you. As a longtime resident of the city of Northglenn, I grew up in this city. So I have attended Northglenn, Leroy Drive Elementary, along with Chris Kodowski. We were in the same kindergarten class. So, but I also just wanted to recognize my class of '85 from Thornton High School as well. But I just want to thank all of the city council for bringing us here today. And it's nothing that Doug just said to you, but I'm going to make this quick and short. We're hoping in the future to move our powwow. So I would hope and pray that we can sit down with the city council and talk about relocation. And it's not that we're not happy with Stonehawker, we're growing out of Stonehawker. We have issues like handicap, accessibility, also the growth. We're having people coming out of the state now. So you've got vendors coming from New Mexico, Arizona, South Dakota, You have drum groups coming in from Wyoming, from the Wind River Reservation. So you have to realize we're bringing other elements into this powwow. So we're trying to bring revenue into the city as well. So I would hope at some point that we can sit down and talk about moving. So again, thank you. And I just want to say again, for the cultural aspect, we'd like to be your cultural event for years to come. So if you could accept us in that way, we truly appreciate it. Thank you. And I'm going to introduce our dancers. We have Thomas Yellowhurst. He is our Northern traditional dancer. And we have Raya Joyhart. I always get that wrong. I'm sorry, Raya. She is a jingle dress dancer. And we have Robert Hawk, who is our headman dancer, who's dancing in grass, men's grass, old style. First dancer will be Raya. And this was Robert Hawk that just dances grass, and then we're going to introduce Thomas Yellowhorse dancing Northern Traditional. And just so you know, you'll see much more of this at the next powwow this weekend, September 14 and 15, Stonehawker Park, and we'd love to have you there. Thank you.
I gotta get into my songbook. So this next song is a Vietnam song. The reason why I want to sing this is because I want to honor our mayor.
Oh.
In that way. And what this song says is that I went over there to do my duty, but I still have friends over there, so I'm thinking of them. That's what that song says. 2 push-ups? Hey! Thank you very much to all of you. We appreciate you. Come to our powwow this weekend. Come eat, buy some souvenirs, and have a good time. Hookah.
Robert.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Calling for you.
So much. Well, you know what? I'm going to be there for the powwow. So you'll be able to help me. It's amazing. Thanks, Dad. I've seen it. I've got a few. I will.
Thank you, brother.
I think that felt like good news. Even more. Good. Be the best. Let's connect.
Yeah, connect with them. Do it.
I mean,
No, it's just that they're part of the regalia. You know, these are warriors. They're not supposed to.
right. Oh, I can't wait to learn more.
I'm teasing.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry to see everybody leaving.
I know. It's now getting exciting. Come on.
So it doesn't look.
Robert Hawk, the young man who danced second, was one of my kids at Northglenn High School when I did a Native American support group. Robert Hawk is the son of Officer Hawk, who used to be here. Calvin? Yeah, that's Calvin's son.
That's true.
I was at, when did he go? I don't know, he might have been there 10 years, I don't know. I was there I went there 10 years, I was there from 2001 to 2009.
I just thought I'd make you do. Make me
I
know,
couldn't get
oh
out of the
God,
12th grade, I don't know what was wrong.
Don't let it get. There's no rest for the weary.
That was beautiful.
That was. It was really energetic. It was.
Okay, so now we are into public invited to be heard. We have one person signed up, Josh Schlenker.
Oh, we have to do the constant. He's okay.
How are you guys doing this afternoon?
Hi, Josh.
Hi. I've already had a meeting today with Ms. Geyer and the commander and another officer. My concern is schools, children's safety at the Adams 12 bus stops. In the last year, I have lived in this city. They have gone bad. My son almost got hit last year, and I just recently have picture proof of a Thursday incident of two cars running a school bus stop sign. It is getting real bad in this city. I've posted some stuff on the neighborhood app, and I've heard back from some more community members, and they all think the same thing. It's getting bad. They've asked for more patrols, especially at a high school. Let me get that high school up real quick. I'm sorry. And the issue there was the students there are speeding and not obeying any kind of traffic rules there. And this is just a new one that I've been aware of. I have not been able to raise this to the Ms. Geyer, which would be Northglenn High School and Vantage Point. Those students have gotten, are not, what's the word? Yeah, obeying, thank you, by the speed either. It's caused concerns for the other little elementary and middle school students in that area and their safety too. I wanted to let the council know of my concerns, especially seeing so many kids and more vehicles not obeying by the law. It's something that I think really needs to be addressed. I mean, my son inches away from getting hit, and that was hard. So I just wanted the council to be aware of that. I know Ms. Geyer and the commander already knows, So that's all I gotta say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
We
bringing that
take your,
forward.
your information very serious, Josh. Appreciate you sharing that.
Mayor Escabel, would you like me to provide you with a little bit more context on the situation? Thank you. Chief May, Commander Prang, and myself met with Josh and is it your brother, Travis, this afternoon? So they brought to our attention two specific situations that I think are important for you to know that we'll be taking action on. The two specific situations are when a bus stop stops, puts out the flashing stop sign, and then cars navigate around. So one stop is southbound on Community Center Drive, just in front of the apartment complex right next door to us. And then the second, which he witnessed and his brother witnessed last Thursday and has pictures of, is the bus that stops westbound just short of the intersection of Grant and Malley. And so we're going to, with their help, reach out to Adams 12 five-star schools and, number one, get confirmation if that's where those buses are supposed to be stopping, communicate our safety concerns about the location of those stops in proximity to just those streets being high-volume streets, and is that the bus location for those bus stops. The chief will be working with Commander Prang and trying to make contact with the motorists that they were able to get photos of the license plates on and see what they can find out on that front. So just a little bit more on that information.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Since you're going to reach out, would it be possible to, I wonder if we can collect more data from the transportation department? Those bus drivers are going to know how often and at which stops drivers are doing that, because I know those aren't the only two.
Yeah, we can ask a broader question, certainly,
Okay.
Councilmember Lady. Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Anybody else?
Okay, thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Legislative Policy Committee update.
Yes, and so we
Julie?
have, Julie, I'm gonna take it on today. So, we have a great announcement. We have our new lobbyists. Feel free to come up here, guys. Let's introduce yourselves. So we have Ed, Jennifer, and Alina, who are our final lobbyists that we chose. So just to go over the process again for everyone, we did have 5 applicants. We interviewed 3, and they are our finalists. So, would you guys like to introduce yourself to the council?
Sure. I'm Ed Bowditch.
Jennifer Castle. And Elena McWhorter. So they're going to be joining us in our Legislative Policy Committee meetings, and we're really looking forward to working with them on this upcoming legislative session. Oh, anything else exciting? No, I think we're good. So, thank you guys. Any questions from council?
So this is going to sound like a dumb question.
Okay.
So we had 1 lobbyist and now we have 3?
No, this is.
It is a dumb question.
Question. Three to places work. No, so they are their own firm. So it's like a package deal.
Got it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Welcome. Nice to meet you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
The other package had 1 in it. This one's got 3 in it.
I think it's a great team. We're really looking forward to working with them.
Awesome.
We're excited.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
Very excited to work with you all.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, financial report. Jason?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The July finance report, 58% of the way through the year. So now it's September, so it's a little dated, but that's okay. I'll start off on sales and use tax. Is up 4.7% through July, which is about $521,000. Auto use tax kind of continues to lead, being up 13%. Sales tax specifically is up 2.3%. Food tax up 4%, and then marijuana tax is up just under 22%. Portion of that is due to the increase in tax that we added, the 2% this year. So if you look at it, kind of peel the onion a little bit away, marijuana, it's down about 5% on the year. Overall, don't see too big of an impact there with competition around the area increasing, and just more competition, I think, has driven that down overall. But on a broader picture, it's up 22% for the year. On the general fund revenues, those are at just over $15 million, an increase of 1.5% year over year. You can see on the summary page on page 2, kind of where some of that is coming from. Total taxes are up just about 2.5%. Intergovernmental revenues, I'll point out, it's down 9%. That's due to the Adams County road and bridge tax, just the timing of a payment of $120,000. So that's actually up for the year if you factor in the timing of a payment we received in August. Other revenues, licenses and permits, building and right-of-way permits are down quite a bit year over year. And a lot of that is just cyclical in nature. 2018, there was a significant boom, and this is tapering off into kind of more normal levels. So not necessarily a concern, but just a revenue that's a little bit down when you're doing one-year comparisons. Again, fines and forfeitures down about 20%. Investment earnings up 83%. And then you can see there at the bottom, as I mentioned before, total revenues up 1.5% on the year. On the expenditure side in the general fund, expenditures totaled just over $14 million. That's up 2.3% year over year, in line with budget. We keep a really good pulse on what we're doing in the general fund specifically, as with all funds, with our spending and what's falling in line with the budget. You'll see on the spending rate side of things, I'll point out finance, 58% of the year through the year, but we've spent 63% of our money. That's just the timing of some expenditures with our audit. We made those payments early in the year, which is why the timing is off just a little bit. Legislative spending, you'll see, is up 14%. There's some special counsel fees that are driving that increase. In addition to with $16,000 going to the Ralston House, that wasn't a normal expenditure for that contribution. City manager spending is up 32%. 50th anniversary compensation study, resident survey, those are driving that number up. And everybody else, department-wise, in that breakout is in line, I would say. Does anybody have any questions on any departments, or we can come back to those two?
Can I just get you to clarify your statement where you
Sure.
said that, you got a little fuzzy on me there.
Oh, yeah.
About cancel expenditures that were driving that up, is that just related to the Ralston House? Or there are
Ralston
other-
House, and then special counsel as an attorney.
Okay, perfect,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah. In the water fund, total revenues are at $5.4 million, and basically equivalent to expenditures, revenues over expenditures. Expenditures are over about $71,000. Total revenues in that fund are down 4.9%, and you'll see water charges are down 11%. Consumption's down just over 15% through July, and so that's driving that figure there. On the spending side, operationally, we're in line. On the operating expenditures, just up 1%, and then capital outlay with projects that are specific in that regard. On the wastewater side, in that fund, total revenues are at $2.3 million and expenditures of $2.6 million. Again, wastewater charges are at they're up 7.6% year over year, and the total in that fund is up 9.67%. And then operating expenditures are basically in line, and then capital outlay is up, again, with special projects that we have going on, maintenance and one-time expenditures. The stormwater fund, total revenues of $242,000 and expenses of $53,000. Again, no rate increases, so we expect flat revenues, which we see, and then expenditures are down slightly because of one-time projects in 2018. And then sanitation fund, total revenues just over $1 million, and expenditures similar of just over $1 million. Revenues are up 4.6%. You'll see some increase in the recycling revenue. That's actually some recycling grant that we received. It was new this year of $19,900, which is kind of driving that number. And then in the recycling revenue, there's a rebate from the state of about $8,000. We received that in July this year. We typically receive that in October, so the timing of that kind of makes that number look a little bit skewed year over year. On the expenditure side, up about 9%. On the solid waste collection, so kind of on the operational side of things. We've talked about the tip fee for recycling being up. That number is about $40,000 a year to date, higher than the prior year. So we are seeing some increase there as we kind of had predicted as we're doing recycling. If there's any questions on the funds,
I think you should explain to the residents why we expected that recycling number to go up. Because most of them watching or listening would be, thinking, I'm recycling, why is that cost?
Yeah, so the commodity prices for recyclables, there's just not money to be made globally, specifically nationally, I would say. We'll stick to us in the U.S. So while there's not a market for it, for somebody to accept the recyclable, sort it, those prices are just not there, that people are making money on the back end, so they're charging us. We used to get paid to recycle when we delivered that, and now we're being charged about $60 a ton for the recycling versus, I think it's about $12 for trash. So, and my numbers might be off a couple dollars here or there, but so that's why we're expecting to see those expenditures in that fund grow for the recycling.
I think it's really important to remind the residents that we do want them to recycle, but a lot of people don't understand why it's costing money.
And then moving through the reports, cash and investments in July topped out at $70.3 million. That's up from about $65 million last July. And then on page 11, the geographic code summary. You'll see most of the areas are doing quite well. There's 4 areas: the Marketplace, Northglenn Greens, Huron Crossing, and then East Lake that are down each slightly, nothing significant, down generally less than 1%. We're up over 6% within the sales and use tax that's generated within city limits. So that's clearly a positive for the economy locally. So, and I can be done.
Oh, look at your pretty graph.
On that note, that was a good note to end on. Any questions?
Any questions?
This was just through June of this year, right?
Through July, but June sales tax collections, yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, thank you.
Consent agenda. Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion approved. Go for the vote, please.
The vote is open.
Oh, wait.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and the consent agenda passes unanimously.
Ordinance's first reading. Karen, would you read the title, please?
This is for CB 1932, a bill for a special ordinance rezoning from MC Mixed Use Corridor to PF Public Facilities certain real property known as the Northglenn Civic Campus property, City of Northglenn, County of Adams, State of Colorado, and amending the zoning map of the City of Northglenn.
Move for approval.
Second.
City Manager Guyer, would you summarize?
Thank you, Mayor Escobar. This 7-acre portion is the portion of the Civic Center site that the Recreation Center, Senior Center, and Theater will reside on. This step is being taken, and it was reviewed, the rezoning request was reviewed by the Planning Commission on August 20th. Staff is recommending that it be rezoned to public facilities, which is a better fit in terms of the zoning. The rest of the site will remain mixed-use zoning.
Discussion, questions?
Mixed-use corridor, excuse me.
Okay, Joanne, would you read the next one?
Actually, I'm going to open the vote for CB
Oh, I'm sorry.
1932.
Yeah, now I can find my stuff. Please vote.
City Council. There you are. You're in City Council chambers, I found you.
Right,
I'll close that vote, and CB 1932 on first reading passes unanimously.
okay. CB 1933, Joanne, would you read the title, please?
A bill for a special ordinance authorizing a site lease and lease purchase agreement between the City of Northglenn, Colorado, and UMB Bank N.A. solely in its capacity as trustee for the purpose of financing a new municipal recreational center and related improvements, approving not to exceed $42 million principal amount of certificates of participation, Series 2019, in connection therewith, authorizing officials of the city to take all action necessary to carry out the transactions contemplated hereby and related matters.
Move for approval.
City Manager Guyer, would you summarize?
Thank you, Mayor Escobar. I'm going to ask Jason Loveland, our Finance Director, to come forward and provide an in-depth summary of this action item and what it means leading up to the groundbreaking of our new rec center, senior center theater.
Thank you. So this specific ordinance is, as it was read in the title, authorizing the city to move forward with the financing of the recreation center. Specifically, you'll see it setting the parameters in the ordinance of the aggregate amount of bonds to be sold to not exceed $42 million, interest rates of not to exceed 5.5%, and then additionally, the number of years of 25-year maturity. So those are the parameters. That's not necessarily what's going to happen. The $42 million will be what we're going to issue. This is part of the project in conjunction with NURA and their financing of $11 million. We've been talking about a $53 million project for quite some time now. The $42 million will fall in place with the debt issue from NURA of the $11 million. This is the same financing method that we used for the Justice Center, if we recall that. And really, it's authorizing you're authorizing staff to move forward with the documentation and the financing. Staff meaning the city manager and the finance director, the city clerk, and then the mayor pro tem will be signing documents as we go through. There'll be a second reading and public hearing in 2 weeks. And we're expecting to close on this deal in December at some point. So there's kind of baby steps that we're taking. First, we need the authorization from City Council to move forward, and then we'll work on finalizing the documents over the next several months.
Questions for Jason?
Well, all right.
I'll be here tonight. Open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CB 1933 on first reading passes unanimously.
CB 1934, Joanne, would you read the title, please?
A bill for an ordinance amending Section 2-2-3, Parent B of the Northglenn Municipal Code regarding the organizational meeting following a regular municipal election.
Move for approval.
Moved and seconded. Like to summarize, City Manager Hire?
Yes, Mayor Escabel. City Clerk Joanna Small is going to summarize this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. CB 1934 has been drafted by the city attorney to provide more flexibility related to the timing of when city council committee appointments are made following every regular city election. Currently, the appointments are required to be made at the city council organizational meeting, and that organizational meeting occurs at the first meeting following the certification of election results. The proposed ordinance would provide an additional time frame of 60 days in order to make those council committee appointments. And so the change, that additional time would allow for more time for new council members to get an understanding of the different board and committee opportunities that they could serve in, while also not making the deadline past January of the next year in order to take advantage of those newly appointed roles with those outside organizations. Staff recommends approval of CB 1934 on first reading, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Yes.
I think this is a great idea, a great plan. My concern lies with the fact that we're going to have up to 60 days that we're not supporting our boards and commissions. What is the intent that the existing council will then support the commissions and boards until we get the assignments going?
It will really depend on council. That 60 days doesn't mean that council has to wait the entire 60 days to make those appointments. So depending on how the new city council and mayor decide to handle filling those appointments can be made at any time. So they could, in fact, be made at the organizational meeting still, or just at any time within those 60 days.
Okay, thank you.
Open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CB 1934 on first reading passes unanimously.
Okay, CB 1935, read the title, please.
A bill for an ordinance amending sections 9-14-3 and 9-14-4 of the Northglenn Municipal Code prohibiting smoking and the use of electronic smoking devices in public parks and recreational areas.
Move for approval.
Okay.
City Manager Guyer?
Thank you, Mayor Escabel. Staff previously brought this topic of prohibiting smoking in public places, as well as taking steps to address the impact of vaping on our youth and our community to council for discussion a couple months ago. I believe it was late June. So staff has received direction from City Council. We're bringing forward the prohibiting smoking in public places ordinance for your consideration. The other piece that we received direction on was moving forward with doing an outreach to the community, in particular youth, as well as our business community, and looking at what different regulatory changes with the licensing of vaping and tobacco businesses look like. So we're still planning on moving forward with that piece, but we were able to get this piece teed up sooner, so that's why this is in front of you this evening, separate from the other piece. Our city attorney, Corey Hoffman, drafted this ordinance. Amanda Peterson, our director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture, we've spoken, and we can complete and do all of the signage in-house. We don't have a draft mock-up of the sign, but if there's any questions specific to that, Amanda would be happy to answer what that's envisioned to look like tonight.
Any questions for City Manager Guyer, or yes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm curious, in looking through what's included in this as a package item, I'm not seeing any piece about enforcement or what happens in the event that somebody is ticketed. Is it simply a misdemeanor? Can you talk more about the enforcement piece as well?
Well, I can tell you that it is a municipal offense, so it would be prosecutable in the municipal court if cited. And so then the penalty is up to the judge within the parameters of our code.
And the enforcement piece is just if somebody observes an individual smoking or using a vape pen, call the police? Is that?
Call our police department. Chief, do you want to come up and talk more about what the enforcement piece will look like, please?
Mayor, Council, I see it just being complaint-driven. I hope we can go more in education. That's the biggest piece for us. I don't want it to turn into something that, where people calling complaints and they see individuals out there at a certain location all the time that, hopefully the education piece works. But if it comes out to the point that we multiple times going out there for the same group, then we can issue. But that's at last resort, would be issuing a ticket. Because I want to make sure we educate, and it's about health, right? So, and that's it. And then there's some that don't have houses too, so, that live in our community that, they have a place to smoke too. So I want to make sure that it's not going to be heavy-handed. Oh, can you hear me?
No, but I probably could, but I don't know if folks who are listening could, but that's okay, I heard.
So yeah, education first, enforcement last resort.
Okay, great. Thank you for saying that. That's really important to me is making sure that we're educating folks and not initially giving out tickets or citing individuals, because I certainly wouldn't want some of our young folks to have an interaction with the justice system early on or simply for using vape pens. So I appreciate that education is going to be the focus first and foremost. Thank you.
Hi. Quick question for Corey, just a point of clarification. So, I'm thinking about the marketplace, and there's lots of, things that we're planning on doing over there. How does outside tobacco use work? So, like, if you're outside Atlanta Bread and eating at those tables versus walking up and down, how does this impact that?
So the public smoking is prohibited in buildings and then within 25 feet of those buildings.
Okay.
That is a separate prohibition than this prohibition. And so then under this prohibition, you can't be in any essentially parks, open space, playground areas and the like.
Okay.
If you are in on a sidewalk, outside the 25-foot limitation or on a street, that is still an area you can smoke in.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
No. Can you say that one more time? It's the same law that we've always had?
Except that the previous law was 15 feet, now it's
Now we
25.
bumped it up to 25.
And then this adds, as an area where you cannot smoke, parks and trails and open space. So if you're not in a park, trail, or open space, and you're not within 25 foot of the building, you can smoke.
Well, as someone who is going to celebrate their 6-month anniversary next week of being smoke-free, small pat on my back, I think this is a great start. I only smoked for 10 years, but it was enough. We have a saying in my family, nothing like a reformed horse. So for those who know what I'm talking about, quit smoking. Food tastes totally different. You can breathe again. Knock it off. That's my speech.
Drop your sticker.
I don't find it. I am saving so much money. It's amazing. Oh, and I also learned a whole lot of words on what you can smoke at the airport. You think you covered everything?
I tried.
I haven't heard 95% of these.
Anything else? Then would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CB 1935 on first reading passes unanimously. And I would like to note for the record that the public hearings on CB 1932, CB 1933, CB 1934, and CB 1935 will be held on September 23rd, 2019, here in City Hall Council Chambers.
Resolutions? Would you read the titles, please?
The first one is for CR 102, a resolution approving an agreement between the City of Northglenn and Playtime LLC for the Civic Center Master Plan Phase 1 indoor play equipment.
City Manager Garb, would you summarize?
Thank you, Mayor Escobar. I'm going to ask Amanda Peterson to summarize this one. This is a fun one. It's play equipment.
It is play equipment. It's always fun. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Amanda Peterson, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture. This is another contract that will be a part of the FF&E, the furnitures, fixtures, and equipment, or the soft costs associated with the new facility. This is a contract with Playtime to provide both the design and installation of themed playground equipment on the indoor portion at the new rec center. We'll have a different vendor for outdoor play equipment associated with the preschool classrooms. The contract is for a not to exceed amount of $90,000 with an additional $10,000 contingency for a total project cost of not to exceed $100,000. As I said, funds are budgeted in, and that is the amount that we budgeted for that particular line item as a part of the original project. There was one line that the vendor requested be removed from the contract, and I apologize, I didn't realize, I learned this morning that the draft contract that came forward to you did not have that line shown as being struck out. So the line is on page 1 of the contract in section 4 under compensation, the first paragraph, paragraph A, and it reads, invoices will be itemized and include hourly breakdown for all personnel and other changes. They did request that that line be removed as a not to exceed contract with the design to be determined within the scope of the RFP and the proposal that they submitted, or the parameters that are within that RFP. The play structure would be billed as a lump sum with pricing per component. That removal was reviewed, or the removal of that line was reviewed by the city attorney and approved to move forward. And with that, if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Questions?
All right, thank you.
Now, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
Long.
I'll close that vote, and CR 102 passes unanimously.
CR 105, Karen, would you read the title, please?
A resolution authorizing necessary expenditures to accomplish repairs to the Stanley Lake pipeline.
Move for approval. Second.
City Manager Guyer, would you summarize?
Thank you, Mayor Escabel. This item is in regards to the Stanley Lake Pipeline Joint Operating Committee escrow account for maintenance and programming of the pipeline that we share from Stanley Lake into the city of Northglenn along with Thornton. This request is to increase this escrow account amount by $75,000 in addition to the $150,000 contribution we've already made in 2019 for a total contribution for 2019 to be $225,000. Kent Kisselman, our Public Works Director, is here, and he can answer any specific questions about the projects taking place, but this overall is an increase in the escrow amount.
Questions for City Manager Guyer? No. Joanne, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I will close that vote, and CR 105 passes unanimously.
CR 106, would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving an agreement between the City of Northglenn and Colby Striping Incorporated for the 2019 Residential Street Program Lane Striping Project.
Move for approval.
That's it.
City Manager Guyer, would you summarize, please?
Thank you, Mayor Escabel. I am going to have Kent Kisselman, our Public Works Director, provide a summary to council on this one. He can't get away with not talking to council tonight before he goes home to watch the Bronco game, right, Kent?
Correct, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kent Kisselman, Director of Public Works. A couple weeks ago, we brought forth the residential street program for the paving, and we discussed about separating the paving cost versus the asphalt, the paving and the striping cost to get a benefit of cost on this. So this is for the striping for that same program. And the striping for this will include the striping on Melody from Huron to 104th, and the striping from Grant from Malley to Muriel. And so then the entire Grant section will now be completed. It is a different contractor than the one that was last year, but this is the same contractor who is doing the community development block grant striping on Claude. And it's within budget. And we'll have, with the total project cost that was budgeted for the entire project, we've spent $45,000 on the PCI, which is the Pavement Condition Index Survey, about 1.5 on the paving part of this, the milling and overlay, and this is $208,852.05 with a 15% contingency. And I can answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Kent? I don't have any questions, but I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
As I'm visiting with residents on Melody, I have to explain to them each and every time what we're going to do. I'll be glad when this job is done.
I agree.
What are you going to do? And I just told you yesterday.
Yeah,
But
we're trying to get that out there.
They're very concerned, and that's good.
Yeah.
You know, they keep everybody on their toes.
Well, of course, you can always direct them to me, and I can walk them through.
Thank you, Kent.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to discussion items.
Did they vote?
Mayor,
Oh,
is the
I'm
vote-
sorry, the vote. Do I have you open the vote, please?
the vote is open?
Thank you. Please vote.
I will close that vote, and CR 106 passes unanimously.
Okay, now we'll get to discussion items. Kiwanis School update. Is that you, Amanda?
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. I was really hoping I'd get to provide you an update tonight that they were done, and we are not there yet. But they are making good progress out at the Kiwanis site. In the memo, I shared with you that the electrical service had been installed and passed inspections on August 27th, which yay, that's one hurdle that we needed to pass. However, we also need Excel to come out and actually turn that service on, and we are still waiting for them to do that. They have been out on site several times, but they haven't had the right person or the right team, so they've had some back and forth trying to figure out on their end. They were out on site on Friday, and they thought they were going to be able to get that service turned on by the end of the day today. I was out there this afternoon at about 1 o'clock on site, and they hadn't seen them yet, but the contractor was still feeling optimistic that they were going to show up by day's end. So once they can get the electrical turned on, that does allow them there are certain components of the project they can't do till electrical is on. However, the time that they've been waiting for electrical to turn on, they've been able to do, there's other work that can be done that isn't delayed by the lack of electrical. So in the meantime, they are working on irrigation, landscaping, site grading, and general site work. We did receive an updated schedule from them late this afternoon. They're showing on that schedule substantial completion a week from tomorrow. I believe that's still pretty optimistic, but that is what their updated schedule says. It did assume, and I say assume, they gave it to us at the end of the day today. That schedule did say that the electrical inspection occurred today on the schedule, but I haven't received that confirmation from them. So I don't know if that was that Excel came out at the end of the day today, or if they were assuming Excel would come out by the end of the day today. So we'll know that tomorrow morning. And as I said, they continue to move forward with everything else on the site, and hopefully are going to be able to wrap things up here. The next week feels pretty optimistic to me, but like I said, that is the schedule that they have turned into us, and I know that they understand the need to complete the project and wrap things up and move on out of there. We did, on another note, we did receive a letter from Tri-County Health stating that they have had an additional requirement to add an emergency shutoff valve to the splash pad that was not in place when they reviewed our plans. And so we do have a call into Tri-County Health just to understand more about how that regulation affects us. Oftentimes when Tri-County implements a new regulation, there's a period of time over which that needs to be implemented. We just want to understand how it impacts this particular project since it is new. Once we understand it fully, we will either, if it's appropriate and necessary, we'll take steps to make sure that we put that emergency shutoff valve in. but it doesn't hold up any other work on the site. It's not the type of work that would impact their ability to move forward and continue everything that is already in progress. It would be something we would add on top of the work. It can be done when everything else is complete, if that is indeed the case. And as I said, staff will continue to work very closely with the contractor to, one, keep them on schedule, to understand what outside influences are impacting them. I would consider something like Excel an outside influence. I would consider their subcontractor within their control. So that would be one differentiation I would make. If we could all determine exactly when Excel showed up, I think that might be some kind of magic that we unfortunately don't have. And my hope is we'll be providing you with another update here towards the end of the month at the final September council meeting. And hopefully that one will be a completion update. Any questions that I can answer?
So I'm just curious, is it our role to get Excel out there, or is it the contract?
It is the contractors.
And I'm just curious, we sort of have magic. I'm just wondering, is it worth us reaching out to Preston? He's been very helpful.
Yes, I can do that.
Asking
and
him to help
see
us.
if that helps speed things along. Yes, absolutely. Good suggestion.
Amanda, I've kind of alluded to this. If it had been opened on the schedule that we originally had, we would have time to test and break things and have things covered by any kind of a warranty period. Did we get an extension on that to go into the spring of next year and summer?
So that warranty period will definitely take us through an entire operating season. Yes. We have asked for the pool to remain open or non-winterized until the project is complete so that we can do a full test of that system before it's winterized, and then same thing with startup in the spring. But yes, it is definitely under warranty throughout the whole next season.
Cool, thanks.
Mayor Escabel, if I can make one comment for council's benefit as well as that of the public. I have received some concern about the delay in this project, and some residents are naturally asking questions, well, are we going to have the same type of delay with a larger project that we have on the horizon with the Recreation Center, Senior Center, Theater? My answer is it's a different project, a different contractor, and there will be different subcontractors involved in this project. So I can't echo enough how unfortunate this delay has been, but I'd ask that that connection not be made because they're completely separate items. So even with the delays that we experienced at Northwest Open Space, completely separate. So we're working with Krishy, the contractor, and I forget the subcontractor's name off the top of my head, Amanda.
There's several of them.
But we work with Krishy, the GC, and so I just want to provide our residents with an assurance that there's no correlation with the delay on this project with what the city and staff are capable of executing with this construction of the new Recreation Center, Senior Center, and Theater.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Police Department Staffing and Operations Assessment, City Manager Guyer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Escabel. So what you have before you this evening is a draft scope of services that Chief May, myself, have worked on. Chief did some research and outreaching to other communities. We received an example from City of Westminster and put together the scope of services. So what you see before you is what I'm going to put into a request for proposal, the formal procurement document. And as I mentioned in the past, rather than waiting until 2020 to go ahead and kick this process off, I'm asking for council support to go ahead and get the RFP out on the street, so to speak, and then I'm anticipating that the proposals will probably come in at around the 50,000, maybe higher cost range, in which I would be bringing a contract back to council hopefully early November, kicking off work in partnership with Chief May. We anticipate that this will take about 6 months to complete. The way the scope of services is written. It's a comprehensive 360-degree, as we're calling it, review of both operations and staffing levels. So Chief May put together the 5-year staffing plan that was presented to council last fall, and this will be an opportunity to have outside third-party expertise review that staffing plan in addition to all the different operational aspects that are outlined in the scope of services and provide us with guidance and feedback. The way I look at this is a way for us to take a step back and look at the things that we do well and the things that we could do better on. And I don't believe, and Chief, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we've ever done this type of assessment. Okay, so 1989 was the last time we did this assessment. One of the great things about doing this type of assessment that Chief and I have talked more so about of recent is that this will help give us an idea of when we're ready to pursue state accreditation as well as eventually pursuing national accreditation. There's a lot involved in both of those processes, but I think we've got great programming, and as we move forward in addressing the staffing challenges we've had in getting staffed up and then retaining the staff that we have, I think we'll be better positioned to pursue state and national accreditation. Chief, would you like to add anything to what I've shared?
It's always nice to look at best practices and make sure that we have everything up to date with our policies, our procedures. One of the things that we're, doing internally right now is that culture of accountability, not only internally to our staff, but also we want to make sure we're doing that with our citizens as well. So I look forward to that. I mean, it's going to, highlight the things that we, like City Manager said, that, the things we do really well, and that'll give us some opportunities for things that we can improve on. And then also double check my numbers when it comes to the staffing and see where we're at on that too, because it's what you want, as a police department. What are some of the programming that you want in place, and you'll have an opportunity to talk to the people doing the assessment so they can build that in. If that's more school resource officers, or if that's more like an impact team, for high crime areas, whatever, some of the things that we want to go for, they'll be able to put that into the programming when they're doing the staffing analysis. And then best practice for recruitment and retention. Some of the things, we've been doing a while, and backgrounds, because that stuff takes a little bit. And then our internal stuff when it comes to internal affairs investigations, and making sure that we're handling that correctly too. So I just want a big, like City Manager said, 360 view, top to bottom, make sure we're, doing best practices so we can be that premier police organization that I think we are, or we can be. So we're good, but we can be better, so.
One of the things that I included on the, page 1 of the scope of services partway down is an initial kickoff conversation with City Council. So, most communities, they hire the consultant, do the work, and then bring a report forward. So we're being very intentional about making sure we bring the consultant forward, get in front of council, get thoughts, feedback from all of you, and then have them do the work that they'll do, and then bring back the final report to you.
Quick question, Heather. Do we have any idea how many of our neighboring communities or throughout Colorado have a state or national accreditation for their police?
Ooh, Chief needs to help me with this. I know Wheat Ridge has national accreditation. What about Westy, Thornton? Thornton does not. Do you know about state? Okay.
It's fine. I was just curious if everybody had this or if it's just
They're
a small
very
handful.
difficult processes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
It's
great.
a lot of, I don't want to say maintenance, you have to do quite a bit to maintain your status. But it's a good step to take in terms of the process being so comprehensive and looking at every aspect of your department. So the reason why most organizations, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, pursue accreditation either at the state or the national level is because it really forces you to look at what you're doing and how you're doing it, and make sure you're employing those best practices. Really, when you look at a national accreditation, you have national accreditors from all over the country that come in that are peers in law enforcement and in that process.
One thing we did, we made sure that when we were building a building, it was, in CALIA, compliance. So, I mean, that was really important too. So a lot of that stuff, we had in place. Just like our policy and procedures, we make sure that they're CALIA compliant. But to go through the process, that's some of the other stuff they'll look at. So coming into our facilities will be totally fine, when they come and do that check.
Great. Yeah, I like that we're striving for that, so I really appreciate that.
Anything else? All right. Well, now we are in the Unified Development Ordinance Amendment. Look to Buddha.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to start out by saying that the city attorney actually offered to lead this presentation tonight in the interest of time, but seeing that he was wearing an orange tie, I thought I should put on a black and silver tie, and in true fashion of a black and silver tie theme, I think I will lead it just because, that's what black and silver typically does on a Monday night at kickoff right now. So I'm thinking 2 to 3 hours should be enough time. All right, moving on. While we're here tonight, I just had to get that in because.
Yeah, of course. I see that. Yeah.
All right. I don't normally wear this tie, but I just had to because. All right, so here we are. We are bringing this forward tonight because we promised you we would back when we adopted the UDO. Over the last several months, we've been going through learning how the new code works and identifying any things that we may have missed, things that probably need a little bit further clarification, and we said we'd bring it back to you. Our goal is to have the sitting council act on this simply because you're more familiar with it and you've been through this process over the last several years. So having said that, we're making a presentation tonight on the information that we've come up with so far. This information was presented to the Planning Commission on the August 20th, and the next steps forward here are listed on the slide. What we have in the packet is for attachment 1, there are 3 pages. The first page there are a total of 26 revisions that we're bringing forward with the ordinance that will come forward to you here after our conversation. Page 1 are clerical cross-referencing errors that we've caught. Page 2 reflects revisions that the Planning Commission has supported and has given some additional suggestions for us. And page 3, which you'll notice is the shortest of all the lists, is what we're here tonight to talk to council about, just so that you guys can help weigh in and help provide some guidance to staff on drafting this. And I'd also mention that the page 3 was also a challenge for the Planning Commission. They did not come to consensus on these things, and so we're going to basically try to pose a very simple question on these items. I would also mention that if there's anything on pages 1, 2 that you would also like to talk about, we definitely have the capacity to do that tonight. But primarily what we wanted to focus on was what we would be asking council for some direction on. But in the slide deck, we've also identified a few things we wanted to make you aware of that the Planning Commission acted on, simply because these are somewhat substantive and also relative to the conversations and concerns that you've brought up in the past when we were working on the adoption of the UDO. Jumping in on this, and I'm going to suggest that rather than on your screens looking at the slide deck is to jump to the actual revisions, because attachment 2 is what the draft amendment will actually look like at this point. The first item is on page 31 of the 60 pages. It's item 16. It's little free libraries. What we're basically proposing here is that free libraries, those things that people put in their front yards to exchange books, would basically be held to the same standard for a post office, for a mailbox. So it'd be a total of 6 square feet and a maximum height of 6 feet. Planning Commission recommended support of that. These are on attachment 2 of the of the first, or excuse me, they're on page 2 of attachment 1. On page 32, item 17, accessory dwelling units and basements. What this is the ADUs. One of the first things that we encountered with the ADUs is that a lot of the existing ProMac homes have basements bigger than 750 square feet. So what we are proposing here is that basements would be allowed for an ADU. All other standards would apply, which essentially means 1 bedroom. What we're finding is people basically would have to wall off a section of their basement and make it an unoccupiable space in order to comply with the current standard. What this would basically say is if you have an 800 or 1,000 square foot basement, you can have an ADU, but you can only have 1 bathroom and 1 kitchen. So therefore, we're not circumventing the intent of the original adoption language, but we're basically providing flexibility. The other thing that was discussed with the Planning Commission is, what happens if someone does an addition, or if there's a multi-level basement floor area. It's the primary floor area, and it would still only be limited to one bathroom. Okay, next one is item 18 on page 33 and 34. This is two issues, actually. It is vending machines in front of convenience stores is really the simplest application of this. The question is how many to allow, and how do we go about regulating what type of vending machines are out there? And so what we've proposed is that, which is not necessarily reflected here in the slide deck, but what we're proposing is a percentage of the storefront be limited to vending machines. So this is Redbox, these are Coca-Cola machines, that type of stuff. And also, the other thing that has been an ongoing issue since I've been here are donation drop boxes, which we currently do not allow. We are going to provide, in the language as it's drafted now, additional provisions that restrict donation drop boxes anywhere on commercial properties that aren't actually part of an ARC or a Goodwill. And historically, part of the reasoning behind this is that people dump trash, then the property owner says, not my problem, it's the donation people's problem. The donation people say it's not my problem, and then it takes time and effort to get that addressed. So that's the logic behind that.
Brooke, can you just give me an example of that? I'm having a hard time.
We don't allow them, so there aren't any right now.
I haven't seen them anywhere.
I can tell you that over in the Albertsons, I believe it was the Compass Bank or TCF Bank, they used to have one, and what would happen on a day, almost on an overnight basis, is that there would be piles of trash congregated around it, and then basically the property owner was like, well, we contracted with the nonprofit saying it's not our problem, and we end up having that go around. All right. Moving on to item 20, screening between residential and non-residential development. In the old code, we had a requirement that basically said the commercial property is responsible for the screening. We want to put that back in there. We took it out. This basically makes it easier for us to administer and enforce when it comes to screening separation between commercial and residential. A great example of that is the east side of Irma, as most of those commercial businesses back up to a residential property. And that's also on page 36. Item 21, front yard fence height. One of the things that we discovered is most of our multifamily properties, because under the new UDO, it's a maximum height of 42 inches for all residential areas. What we failed to recognize when we were drafting this is that multifamily properties typically have taller fences. They are transparent in the sense that they're not fully screened, but they typically have some opacity to them. But basically what we're doing is putting in the old provision, which allows for a 6-foot fence in the front setbacks for multifamily properties. Nothing too rocket science here, but once again, just want to make you aware of these things. Okay, size of accessory structures. So this is, these are the two questions that we're really here tonight to ask council about. And the Planning Commission has went back and forth and had very compelling arguments about this. What we're talking about is accessory structures in the backyard, and whether or not there should be a limit to the size of those accessory structures as it relates to the main building, i.e., can someone have a garage or a detached structure in the backyard bigger than the principal structure? There were a lot of arguments for and against this. The main for doing this is that it's proportionality and making it look okay, also trying to prevent things that would otherwise be stored in a accessory structure in the backyard would then not be stored and actually be visible. The other thing here is the size and scale of that structure in relationship to the principal structure and what that looks like as far as a neighborhood aesthetic. So those are the two sort of countermeasures that are associated with this discussion item. And what we're really looking for tonight is, does council have a specific preference on this or not? And this is where I pause, let you contemplate. By the way, this is page 46 in your packet. Eric, is there anything you wanted to add on this one?
No, I think the only thing is, the big question here is, do you as council believe that there is a problem with an accessory structure being larger than the primary structure on a lot? Because it is common. Let me rephrase that. There are properties throughout Northglenn where maybe the footprint of the house might be, let's just say 850 to 900 square feet. Of course, you might have a basement, but the way you would calculate the backyard and the 30% coverage, you may be able to have an allowance for an accessory structure that would be 1,200 square feet. So it would be larger than the primary structure. So that's the question. Should we break up that 30% requirement, or should we just allow property owners to be able to take that entire 30%? It's kind of more of a preference.
So I'm assuming we're grandfathering in all of the ones that are already there, because there's quite a few.
That's correct.
Where
That's
there's
correct.
just enormous structures right next to a little teeny house.
That's correct.
Okay.
I guess I have a clarifying question. So, and I'm not really sure how to put this. Okay, so if I have a house on a lot, but my lot is really big, and I want to fit maybe two different structures, one as like a two-car detached, and then the other one, I still have room to build an accessory dwelling unit. Is that allowed, and how does this size of structure, like, because I have two of them, do they add together to be something
So
bigger?
what we have for the rear yard is a 30% maximum.
Okay.
So the scalability of what you're describing is relative to what the total square footage is.
Okay.
And then how big is building one versus building two, and
Okay.
whether or not there's enough total 30% area to accommodate both of those.
But each structure could be, however large,
Correct.
as long as I still have that 30%.
Correct, and I think to the extent that an ADU, a detached ADU is 750 or 775? 750 square feet. So that's how big that can be, and then the question is your second structure with the 30% area that you have left over out of your lot in the back, would you be able to put that other structure in there? And in most cases, you would be, depending on the lot size.
I think I have a problem with the auxiliary dwelling being bigger than the primary residence. And that's basically the question, right?
That is correct.
Would height be, like, could it be taller? And that's what, like, if I have a house and I have a huge backyard and I want to build something in the back that's higher than my house, that's separate, not attached to my house, that's what.
The answer is possibly. Let's just say you have a one-story ranch house.
Okay.
Typically, those are about 26 feet in height. You can have an accessory structure that's up to 20 square feet or 20 feet in height. So if your house happens to be less than 20 feet, you could have an accessory structure that's taller. That's not very common. So typically, you're going to see an accessory structure less height than that of the primary structure. Now, for ADUs, the possibility that we added in this code, if you recall, is that you could do a second story on a detached garage, let's say, as an accessory dwelling unit. However, we crafted it in the code to say you still can't go above the maximum, the height of the principal structure on the property. So, no, you shouldn't be able to get higher even with an accessory dwelling unit.
Thank you.
So, so playing off that point, so the building itself, or the structure itself, will be taller than the main house?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So really, we're talking about how much of the backyard it's taking.
How much
Okay.
coverage?
How much coverage in the backyard? Okay.
Well, it's twofold. It is how big is a single structure within the coverage area of the back
Okay.
versus multiple structures to accommodate the same outcome.
Okay.
So let's just say that someone wants to put in a 2,500 square foot pole barn garage that's 20 feet high. The question is, that's going to probably be bigger than the building envelope of the primary house, which is probably 1,100 square feet. So with the scenario of not having it bigger than the primary structure, you would technically have 2.5, or you'd have 3 buildings, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, and 500, or a 2,500 square foot structure. The question is really about context in relationship to the primary house and to the neighborhood.
So personally, for me, I mean, the only thing that I think would be, I wouldn't like to see is if you have like a structure that is like 2 times the size of the house on top, like this huge, like, I don't know, skyscraper type structure of some sort. But other than that, I mean, personally for me, it doesn't matter how big they want to make. There's additional structure in the back. We have lots of people who have hobbies, who need workspace, who are artists, who are welder, you know, maybe that's just what they like to do. And so, I mean, usually it's covered by a fence anyway. My neighbors have cars for a hobby. Yes, it's really loud on Sunday morning when they decide to go wherever it is they're driving, but whatever. I love them, and, you know, more power to them, whatever you want to put in your backyard.
So I would point out that by and large, the average height of most Pearl Mac homes, and I'm creating a broad brush generalization here, averages about 28 feet in height. There are some areas, like potentially like on the east side of I-25, where we have a lot more bungalow style, one-story ranch type homes. But by and large, the opportunity to have something that's disproportionate in scale as a height context is not as prevalent as size or area context.
Well, for me, you have the property, you have the space to put in, you should be able to put in what you want to put in. Now, I do not want it higher than the resident. That to me would be an eyesore and probably hurt the community in terms of aesthetic value and financial value. But if you have an acre or an acre and a half lot, put in what you want. I don't think the city needs to dictate to somebody, if you have the space, you're within the easement requirement, put in a 1,200 square foot barn. I'd like to have one in my backyard. I don't have no backyard. Yeah, but it's very small. Anyway, that's my take on it. Anybody else have anything? Becky?
My concern remains with and I'm thinking about my own area that I'm at, right? I have a nice sized house. My neighbor next to me has a addition onto his house that may or may not be at code. But I lack, in some instances, I feel like I lack privacy in my own backyard, right? And I have a tri-level house. And I worry about what somebody with a ranch home would think, having something larger in the back, because they are in fact going to be losing part of their privacy if there's a taller building in the back. And that's just coming from personal things that I've heard, and even from my own feelings. I mean, we've worked it out, but there's a lack of privacy issue if we allow to go up, and that's my only concern.
Let me just point out one thing, if I could.
Okay.
The height limitation in residential districts is the same for the primary structure and the accessory structure. So the only time,
It's just not changing.
right, so the only time that the accessory structure would be taller is if the primary structure wasn't up against the height limitation. Is that?
Yeah, there really should never be a time where your accessory structure is taller than your primary structure. In the standard residential zone districts, 28 feet is the maximum height, okay, for your primary structure. 20 feet is the maximum height for accessory structures.
Okay.
Does that
Thank
make
you for
sense?
clarifying.
So there shouldn't be, the only, if you do a second story on an accessory dwelling unit, can you be equal to that of the primary structure? That's only if you have the height to be able to.
Right, so this is more about bulk than height.
That's
I
right.
think
Or
what,
it is more
this
about-
conversation is more about bulk than height.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
I agree. I don't think we should be telling people what they should be doing in their backyard with their property, so as long as it's not a height thing, I think I'm really good with it.
Yeah.
Is that the general consensus of council?
Yep.
Okay, moving on to item 26. And the kickoff game is, oh, it's already, okay.
It's 7-0.
All right.
Still?
Silver.
So the next item here is really very simple. Do we want to have additions or modifications to structures that are not visible from the public right-of-way, strictly adhere to the design standards of the front of the building?
Yeah. Okay.
So if the front of the house has a brick veneer that goes around the front and wood siding and a certain type of roof treatment, and someone wants to do an addition off the back that's not visible from the street, does it have to match all of the front facade design standards?
I think so, yeah.
Unless it is visible from the public right away.
Right.
So I have a question about that. So if you actually back a public right away, so like, for example, I'm thinking about those houses on 112th and you could see in people's backyards, like, does that count? Like, if they decide to do like shelter back there?
Let me explain a little bit about where this one came from, because in the previous code, we had some subjective architectural standards for residential additions. So that would be, you know, an attached garage or an addition to the side or the back of your house that basically said it has to be architecturally compatible with that of the primary structure. So that led to a lot of debate as to what, you know, whose definition of what is compatible. So that was pulled out of the code. We're coming to situations where people are doing additions to the house where now that that's out of the code, even if they do one to the front that's facing the street, there's no architectural standards that we can rely on to say, hey, you still need to put some brick in to match that of the primary structure or that. So it's a question about, hey, do you care about what's on the back of the house, but it's also, do you care about what's visible from the street as well in terms of architectural design for an addition in a single-family residence? Planning Commission's recommendation on this was to put back basically the old language that was in the previous code. So it's still a subjective standard, but that would leave a little bit more teeth to ask for something a little more architecturally compatible with that of the primary building if they do an addition that's visible from the street.
So I kind of see this two ways. One, I've seen folks who've done additions to their houses and it matches their, you know, primary house perfectly and it looks amazing. And then I've seen people who've not done that and it does not look bad. So I'm actually kind of leaning towards putting that back in there and matching. I don't know, that's my personal opinion.
So I think the question is it matching or is it compatible or none of the above?
Match.
What's the difference?
So matching, if someone puts on a patio and they want to do a, say, corrugated, fiberglass, but the color of the material of the corrugated fiberglass matches the roof color, that would be compatible or matching.
Okay.
Whereas, let's just say that somebody, the alternative is someone wants to put, non-galvanized corrugated thing up there, and it looks completely non-compatible, but it's not visible from the public right of way.
I would also argue, there's a scenario where somebody could do an addition to the side of their house, right?
Uh-huh.
And you're visible, half of that, or a portion of that's visible from the street. If they just do whatever they want, they could do it, the houses are traditionally brick. They could do that in just a hardy plank siding, so it doesn't really match. Compatibility could say, you could argue that, hey, you should bring in some of the brick, but you don't have to do it all brick. I'd say consistency is that you would do it all brick. So there's that level of detail too. So
Right.
it's quite subjective.
Yeah, sounds really hard to try to decide.
I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. I guess I'll just say the piece that I'm not in favor of is it has to match exactly, because I think about a lot of the homes in Ward 4 being completely brick, and I know that brick is really expensive. And I know a number of residents who have saved up for a very long time in order to be able to do additions. And the thought of them having to do additions and match 100% brick may mean that they may not be able to do an addition. And so I want to be sensitive to the fact that making everything match may create a cost barrier for our residents being able to create their dream home in Northglenn or age in place, or make their home what they need at the time to stay here. And so I'm a lot more interested in the flexibility. Also because I think that some of these things are so subjective. For some residents that, metal corrugated look may be really trendy, or maybe they're really excited about it, whereas, for other folks, they may think it's really ugly. And I think we had this conversation, we talked about paint colors, and it's a little bit of a flashback to me when we said, well, we don't really, we're not gonna tell you can't paint your house neon green. And granted, none of us wanna live next door to a house with neon green on it. But we ultimately said that it's not our job to tell people what color they can paint their house. And so to me, I get that this is ultimately a character question about a neighborhood, and it's tough because part of me wants to really maintain the character of our homes, but provide that flexibility for folks to have their forever home and whatever that looks like here.
So that, I would suggest that falls in the compatible category.
I was thanks for translating.
I would agree with that too. That's what I took out of that as well.
Marcy?
And I think along the lines that this conversation came up, we had a number of people that were expressing the cost to them putting in a garage. I mean, that's part of how we got to taking it
That's
out,
correct.
right? I mean, they came to us and they said, this is making it so I can't do this garage.
That's correct.
So I just think it's pretty important that, we've already heard that from residents and acknowledge it. So I'd be more in favor of something that's compatible. Yeah.
Anybody not feeling compatible?
Who makes the decision on what's compatible and what's
Yeah.
not?
Staff.
It is, I think it would come to staff. It is a subjective decision.
Yeah.
We could also add in there, and that was one of the planning commission's recommendations, is basically kind of an appeal. So let's just say the applicant doesn't agree with staff's interpretation of compatibility, then they could bump that up to the planning commission for consideration there. Another set of eyes to look at that, so.
And that's already written into the code, is that they can appeal to the Board of Adjustment essentially for that. So we could also tweak that a little bit if it's a design standard level, but that's kind of already a capacity that we have available. So I'm hearing compatible over laissez-faire, let them do what they want, versus strict adherence.
Compatible.
Okay. And that concludes our discussion. So I will come back to the first slide here. So our goal is that we are going to take what you provided tonight. If you have a chance to, and you see anything else that jumps out at you that we didn't cover tonight, that you still have concerns or would like to provide additional comments, let us know. But our goal is to bring it for first reading on the 14th and adoption on the 28th.
Great.
All right, thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Painless. Northglenn Senior Organization 2019 Election Forum. City Manager Guyer.
Thank you, Mayor Escobar. This evening, we have a request from the Northglenn Senior Organization to consider support of a election forum that they are currently in the process of planning. Rosie Gardner is here tonight to assist with this discussion. So the NSO is planning an election forum to be held on Wednesday, October 16th, and they've asked for our support in provision of resources. And what that request initially looks like is providing rental of the theater space, the D.L. Parsons Theater, which would come with a house manager and a technician for approximately $380. The rental period, I believe, is about 5.5 hours in order to do the setup and then actual program of the election forum. And then additionally, there would be costs involved to tape the election forum and then rebroadcast it if council would like to do that on Channel 8, upload it to our YouTube page. We don't have the ability to live broadcast this election forum. Certainly Facebook live streaming is something that could be considered by the NSO, but we can talk more about that. The ask also includes promotion of the election forum in the October Connection newsletter, and given the timing of Ms. Garner going to the NSO to get approval from them on September 23rd, we would have a window of time to include any type of promotion in the October Connection, in addition to social media. The one piece that I didn't have a chance to completely follow up on is whether or not we could utilize utility bill inserts. Joanna and I met with Rosie Gardner and Jim Lynch on Friday to dive deeper into their requests. So what's before council tonight is the question if council wants to allow the use of city resources. We're asking, if you do, that you allow Joanna, myself, and Corey to come up with administrative guidelines to ensure that the forum is impartial and provides equal access to all candidates. And on that note, before we open up for discussion, I want to turn it over to Corey just so he can provide more detail and depth in regards to the Fair Campaign Practices Act, which is an important piece of the discussion around use of city resources.
And so the law has changed over the past several years. The city can spend money so long as it is not for the purpose of promoting any candidate's nomination, retention, or election. But it is, it can be inadvertent. So the city has to make sure, for example, that if there's a moderator, the moderator's impartial. Everything the city does, and if there is an expenditure of city funds, the city has to take steps to assure that the process is in fact impartial. And so that's the line the city has to toe if city dollars are spent. If someone simply wants to rent a room and pay for it, that's not expenditure of city funds. So the question is whether the city wants to participate by providing, space. In this case, it would be through the NSO, but it could be through other entities as well.
Jenny?
I think that the senior organization hosting an election forum is fantastic. I think any opportunity for us to provide a venue for our residents to get to know candidates and get excited about the election is absolutely what we should be doing. The other thing I think that hopefully this will do is drive participation in our election, which frankly benefits all of us. So I'm a big supporter of it. I do have some questions though, and they are probably going to be directed more towards Rosie. So Rosie, I'm curious, have you, and you may already have done this, have you selected a date for the forum?
October 16th.
Can you see me?
You want to get on a chair and stand up there?
Stand up.
I swear this thing gets taller. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Rosie Garner, citizen of Ward 4. I just want to mention that a number of people came to me saying, does the city ever have an election forum or a candidate forum or anything? And I, you know, I got enough people asking me that I felt compelled to pursue it. So that's kind of how this came. The other thing I want to mention is the NSO does already approve it. The 23rd of September is their board meeting, their regular board meeting, and they just want to vote on it to get it in the minutes is all. I've talked to each and every one of them, and also to Kate Fisher and Michael Stricker, and, you know, so they are all aware and on board. The only other thing, I'll answer your question in a minute, if I can remember what it is, is that I've talked to Shirley Morochek from the League of Women Voters, and they're going to moderate it.
Oh, great, that's great.
So
Good.
that's, you know, it should be fair, definitely fair and impartial.
That was going to be my next question, is had you sought out additional
Yeah.
partners? So I'm glad to hear that the League of Women Voters will participate. That's excellent. The other partner, I was curious if you would be interested in working with the Youth Commission. This seems like a really great opportunity potentially to engage them, even though many of the individuals may not be voters yet. I think it's never too early to engage with some of our younger minds and get them excited about democracy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I will leave
Sure.
that with you. You can decide what you
Yeah,
want to do.
no, that's
I
a
just
great
think it could
idea.
be a fun partnership.
Who is the liaison? Which one of you?
You can talk to Meredith.
Okay.
Yeah, and Amanda's here too. The only thing I was wondering is typically the NSO stuff is during the day and youth commission kiddos are gonna be at school.
Right.
So if it happened to be an evening event, it might be easier to put that partnership
Yeah,
together.
the plan is like 6:30 or 7.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's a great idea.
It's a Wednesday night, and, you know, that, I wanted to wait until this evening to find out, you know, if you all agreed that this was a good idea before I sent out a save the date.
Julie?
Quick question, so how are you planning on getting questions to ask candidates?
I've asked that actually they can come from anywhere. You know, the League of Women Voters likes to develop their own questions, but, you know, I think they need to be customized a bit for the city of Northglenn, and so I've asked the seniors to put their thinking caps on and think, you know, but they will come from a variety of different places.
And then, Heather, just a quick question for you. Would we set up some type of budget of how much we would spend on this type of event and staff time and everything like that? I mean, it sounds like what you said, that there is gonna be staff involved, and so.
Yes, we
Yeah.
could do that based on what actual expenses look like this year. My guess is probably somewhere in the range of $1,500 to $2,000 would be a reasonable budget for this type of event to go ahead and budget for on an annual basis.
I see this like what City of Thornton used to do, right? Okay.
Well, a lot of cities do it. I think
they
we're
used to
the,
bring us all
we're
in from the county.
the exception, I think, rather than the rule.
But you remember when Thornton did they'd bring everybody in, like the Adams County Commissioners and the people running in Thornton, and they ran
Right.
that forum all day long?
Well, I think
Yeah,
they
I think
actually-
when I ran, it was the Sentinel newspapers that did it
They did one
in
too.
council chambers at Thornton, so maybe that's where you're getting the Thornton
Oh, yeah, okay.
idea from. Rotary has done, the Northglenn Thornton Rotary has done the commissioners' forums before in the theater, that the city donated the space and so forth, so.
I think it's great.
Anybody else?
I think it was actually, well, at least when I was running Metro North Chamber is the one that coordinated that and we just used Thornton because they had kind of the
Awesome
space
theater.
to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I think what they did is they had a moderator, but then they also had people in the community that asked questions, and so they tried to get it so that it wasn't, you know, I think they had somebody from the Sentinel and a couple of businesses, and then they had them develop the questions, so it was a little bit more.
Well, with 13 candidates, I think we're going to have to think carefully about how many questions. And you know, in the past, we've done, at least the Rotary did it this way, we put 5x7 cards in the back of the room, if citizens wanted to ask a question, we would allow that. But we kind of I don't want to use the word screen, but we looked at them for themes and then added a public question, one public question.
Julie?
So I think I would be in support of this. I think it is really important for folks who are interested in learning more about the candidates, have the opportunity to do so. One of the things that I think that's holding me back the most, and just something I really want to make sure we're careful about, is how are we going to be very clear with candidates what's acceptable behavior? So, for example, can you have your friends wave signs outside the building? Are you going to have your yard signs up? Like, all of that type of protocol. Like, I think we need to be just really thoughtful about, how all of this takes place and how we expect our candidates to act in this type of thing. So, I mean, I don't know what crazy things happen, but I mean, campaigns get crazy. People hand out lollipops. They throw T-shirts to the crowd. You never know what happens. People do whatever they want for campaigns. So let's just be really thoughtful about how we want this event to go and how we really want to make sure that it's professional and fair for everybody.
No, I think that's exactly right, and I think that was a topic we talked about on Friday when we met with the city manager and decorum.
Yeah.
And another example would be posting signs out on, as you drive in
Exactly.
and so forth.
Yeah.
All of that would be not allowed, of course.
And that's one of the advantages to having it at the city,
Right.
is the city, as the property owner, can enforce those kind of rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clarification question. I initially thought that this was specifically for mayoral candidates. It's all of them?
All of them.
Okay. How long is the forum slated to be? It seems like it could get very long.
With 13 candidates, maybe 2 minutes an answer, I think we have to do the math, so that, could get a little too long. But I think it's doable with
Okay.
13. I don't think we should eliminate the ward candidates.
And are you also going to be inviting the candidates who are running unopposed?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I think it's just as important that the public meets them also.
Okay.
And they answer the same questions, to be fair.
Yeah.
One additional option that I tossed out to Rosie that I know of from my experience at the City of Wheat Ridge is we do have a ballot question. And so Wheat Ridge would always invite a support, and an opposing viewpoint to have those read. So that's something that could be considered.
I don't know where we're going to find an oppose, but that's, and that may be a problem. And I'm not, because with the nature of this ballot question, we can't just have a supporting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
So that may not work.
Okay, so the 16th is, according to Joanne, 5 days after the ballots drop. Is it possible we could have before ballots drop?
Actually, the ballots drop the week of the 14th.
You said the week of the 11th.
So they'll be dropping that whole week. And I'm hoping, the intention here is that we get enough information out that people will hold on to their ballots. If they get them, say they get them on the first day, I'd like to wait to see the form.
Is it possible to move it to a different day? Before, because I could possibly get mine on the 11th. That's 5 days before.
But you should
No,
know
they're
about
gonna
the-
start mailing them on the 14th.
Can we get clarification?
That's not what Joanne said earlier.
Oh, it's not?
No.
That's not true?
I believe, we could have the attorney double check me, but there was a change in the election law, so the first day that ballots can be sent out is the Friday, I can't remember the exact date, but it's actually that Friday before. And I
Okay.
think they did that because the Monday of the week that they generally send the ballots out always happens to be Columbus Day, which is a holiday for the county offices. So they moved that date back one business day.
Okay.
So, depending on how that works, ballots might go into the mail that Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
It may affect when people get those in their mailbox.
We toiled about a lot of this, Monday being a holiday. you know, and wanting to really hit that sweet spot is important, I think. I know that Westminster is doing theirs on the 25th or 26th of September. So, you know, in order to get the League of Women Voters a volunteer, we have to kind of juggle their schedule also. So, and then it's our staff, you know, and the availability of the theater was a big one.
I'm not opposed to it,
Okay.
I'm opposed to the date.
No, it's a good point, and I just want to say
Yeah.
we did think about it extensively.
Well, maybe if we do enough, you know, if the seniors and everybody does enough advertising on this subject and gets the word out, more people will hold back on the
Right,
voting
that's
in
what,
order
that's
to
what
get
we're
that.
hoping, yeah.
Yeah.
Bring them, fill them out,
And
and
then
drop
drop
them
'em
off.
Well, you know what, we talked about registering
Fill it out,
people to
get rid of
vote
it.
also that night.
That would be
They
great.
certainly would never get a mail ballot. It would have to be understood that they would need to do a walk-in ballot. You know, I mean, they'd have to go to a polling place. But
Yeah.
we could easily do that, and the league is also supportive of that, so.
I do agree with Antonio. If there is any other way that we can make it a week earlier even, I think that would be helpful, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
I think it was based on the theater availability, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Thanks
you.
for putting it
Sure,
together,
Rosie.
Rosie. We appreciate it.
All right, communications, let's start with you, Jenny.
Oh, boy. All right.
Yeah.
Couple of updates for me. It's been a busy couple of weeks. I've attended a lot of events. I'm not gonna go through each one individually, but just hit the highlights. I did attend the Adams County Youth Initiative breakfast, the Anythinks 10-year anniversary celebration, as well as the Matthew Shepard Foundation luncheon, all about reacting to and preventing hate crimes in our community. And then I also wanted to talk about briefly, Lauren and I held a Ward 4 meeting. And I want to say thank you, Lauren.
No,
You did a
thank you, Jenny.
fantastic job. You held your own, and I'm so appreciative to you and just all of our incredible staff for making that evening such a success. We had just about 50 residents join us, a little bit more than 50 if you count the ones. And we had a really great discussion about public safety as well as economic development. And I wanted to bring up a couple of the issues that our residents brought up and that we had a pretty lengthy discussion about. First and foremost was homelessness. And folks are seeing it, and not just seeing it, but being impacted by it, specifically around Pope Reservoir and around the RTD bus stop, along the sides of I-25, and then also around the tunnel where we just had a mural. I heard from many residents that they have witnessed individuals urinating and defecating in Pope Reservoir areas, as well as around the tunnel. And to me, that's frankly disgusting and also a public health issue. And so I know that we have been a part of the Adams County Task Force around homelessness and poverty reduction, but frankly, I feel like we're not getting answers, we're not coming up with solutions, we're not putting things in place, waiting for Adams County. And one of the things that I wanted to ask for consensus on this evening is to have a conversation about what we in Northglenn can do and what tools we have in our tool basket or bucket or box, whatever you want to call it, to address this issue, because it's not going away, it's not getting better. I had a resident who gave me a call this afternoon and told me that she and her husband had seen that there was the mural was up, and they went over on Sunday to go and take a look. And they said they walked through the tunnel, there was trash in it and smelled like urine. And by the time they got to the other side, there were individuals sleeping. And so I think that we have to figure it out. I think everybody in the metro area is experiencing the impact of people experiencing homelessness, but we can't continue to push it down the road and just expect the county to address. We have to figure out what we're going to do right here. So I'm asking for consensus to have a conversation and figure out what is Northglenn going to take ownership for and what we're going to do about it.
So I guess my question for you would be, how are you hoping this next conversation will be different than the previous conversation? Because we had a study session sometime.
I don't think
a
we
while ago.
actually had a study session about it. We had the Adams County Poverty Reduction, I think task force, Paulo Diaz, I believe is overseeing it. They came in and talked about some of their efforts. And I know that we've put in ordinances in place
Yeah.
around, the amount of time that you can stand in a median and trying to identify those medians where it may be more unsafe for folks to stay. But I don't know, what I want us to do is talk about, what are we seeing, right? People defecating, people sleeping, what is our response? Because our response cannot always just be, well, we'll get a police officer out there and we're gonna cite them. Every single time we cite somebody who's experiencing homelessness, you're putting up another barrier for them in terms of being able to access service or access housing or get a job. And so I think, recognizing that this issue is significantly more complex than just policing, I think that we need to talk about what issues we're seeing in the community, look at what other communities have done. Westminster, for example, with some of their downtown redevelopment, they have housing allocated specifically for individuals who are chronically homeless. And they have a contract in place with a nonprofit organization to help provide case management services to keep those folks in their homes and keep them off the street. And I think that's a creative solution that, while it may not work for Northglenn, I think that we should be seeking out what is creative and starting somewhere instead of just saying, well, we're gonna get Westminster together or we're just gonna get Thornton together. I think we've got to start being more creative. And so I don't have all of the answers, but what I want to do is start the conversations to start figuring out what the answers are.
I'm in favor of the conversation.
Yeah, me too. Totally.
Do you see it during a study session then?
Yeah.
And then can you identify other people, other resources that we should bring in for the conversation? Because in all honesty, clue out.
Well, and I think
Where to
I mean,
start?
there could be essentially two ways that we could go about this, right? We could either have a study session, conversation, and a little bit more education in terms of what is homelessness, how do people become homelessness. I think that could be helpful also for some of our residents to fully kind of wrap their head and their arms around the issue. The other thing that we could do is pursue a stakeholder process that is specifically targeted at Northglenn. We can do that community education piece as well as have conversations with folks around what piece they might want to take, because I know that we've got a lot of churches in the community. They're very eager and invested in helping out, but they want to know what we need. And so I mean, we could go either way, but my feeling is let's start with a study session and do the work to identify who those partners are, identify, what the problem is that we're exactly trying to solve, and hone in on what our options could potentially be.
I mean, I'm in favor of the conversation. It's one of those ones where you bang your head up against the wall. No.
Well, but let's try and figure it out.
Conversations are fine.
I'm in favor of the conversation. I would just ask that at that study session, we get the information that Kathy from Risk Management has, because we had asked for a task force for the city of Northglenn to be formed, and we asked for the partnership to come together in bringing faith-based, and at the time, our city manager put it on hold for a couple reasons, but a lot of work has been done, and I know Kathy's been working closely with the city of Thornton in some partnership things. So can we just get an update on that to be able to bring to that conversation? Because I think some of that information would be valuable. And then also, we had, 100 teachers that were here that did a whole program last July on this conversation. And I know we got the reports from them, and it would just be worth bringing that information forward for council to see.
So everybody's okay with the conversation and moving forward to explore it? Okay, thank you. The other item that came up that I heard from a number of residents was a concern that speeding below the traffic cones on Livingston continues to be an issue. So Livingston is actually a very long road, and folks are feeling like, and if people who are driving will slow down for the speed humps, and then the rest of Livingston becomes a speedway. And so, Heather, this is just something that I'm flagging. that it would be really, I don't know if we have baseline data in terms of, the rest of the road post speed hump, but it sounds like folks are definitely being impacted, so if we could take a look at that.
So can you repeat the location again?
So,
Livingston?
Livingston, the
The whole
entire
stretch of the road?
Yep,
Okay.
so, essentially, I believe it stops, the traffic humps essentially stop, before Naiad. And then beyond that, folks are experiencing increased speeding. And I mean, when you're driving down, Rosiana as well, or, Rosiana, I believe. I mean, there's Westview Elementary School as well.
So individuals no longer taking Melody Street and going on to.
Not Melody,
No,
they're two
you're
separate.
further up, you're
Yeah.
in the other neighborhood, I'm
Yep,
sorry.
Livingston.
So avoiding those roads and then taking,
No,
explain
so-
more about
okay, so
what the
there's Livingston
connection.
Drive, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very long road.
Right, yeah.
Right, and there
it
are
can be-
two speed humps that are temporary speed humps that we put down as a
Mm-hmm. Right.
part of the temporary traffic calming measures. And folks are seeing relief who live right around the traffic humps.
Right.
After people get past the traffic humps, Livingston is just Livingston again.
Okay.
And it's just a regular road. And so they're slowing down for the speed humps and then going bananas after that.
We need more humps.
I mean, I don't know that we necessarily need more
Well-
humps, but I do think that we should take a look and see, what is the impact even with the traffic humps? Is that a perceived issue? Is it real? What can we do about it?
Is it okay if I share a couple thoughts?
Yeah.
Mayor Esquivel, okay. So, traffic calming's a challenge. I'll be very direct about that. I will check with Kent and see if we have data on Livingston, and if we've done a reassessment of it. I spoke with him today. We're, working on bringing our traffic calming policy to council on, I believe I have it scheduled for October 21st. Because right now, we're in a mode of deploying these counters in different locations, even though that's not necessarily true to what our traffic calming criteria warrants. So we need to have an overall big picture discussion about here's our criteria, here's what we've been doing, here's how many assessments in different areas we've been doing. What we're finding is whether it's real or perceived, that there's certain streets in Northglenn where you're between 25 and 30 miles per hour and the assessment's not meeting the threshold for speed humps. So Kent's currently working with his staff to try to figure out if we need to approach the criteria differently and just the overall process in terms of how an ask gets made of the city, in addition to once the assessment's done, what does it look like in terms of funding needs to actually be able to deploy temporary speed humps? And then at what point do those temporary speed humps, if we find that there's a reduction in speed and volume, that we can make permanent improvements? So this is really a big discussion, I guess, is what I'm trying to explain. So I'll look into the Livingston piece, but know that the larger policy discussion is coming because we know that in areas the temporary speed humps are working. I guess the question is, do we want to deploy speed humps all over the city? And that, that question really gets to the conversation we were having at the strategic planning workshop where we've put forward the suggestion, recommendation that we do a citywide transportation study where we look at all of our roadways, how they're configured. I mean, our community was built in 1969 and since, and so the volume of traffic that we have on our roads today are vastly different than when the city was in its early beginning. So there's a piece to that overall transportation study. There's things I think that we can do in the short term with the traffic calming policy, but it's going to require both pieces to really figure out what do we need from an infrastructure perspective moving forward to address the multi-layered challenges that we have on our roadways.
I agree, because they go up Irma now instead of shooting down Park, Is there any data that can be taken off those flashing signs?
The flashers in the school zones?
No, like over
Oh,
on-
the speed.
Mhm.
I need to double check. I don't remember off the top of my head. Let me double check. I don't remember.
I was just curious as it was flashing at me that I was going to that.
Okay, thank you all for being patient in
Yeah.
my longer than usual council update. I have two final things. One is a reminder that the next Ward 4 meeting will be October 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m. It will also be a candidate forum. This was planned before the senior organization decided that they were going to do one citywide. Right now, we have 4 out of 5 Ward 4 candidates confirmed, as well as all 3 candidates for mayor will be joining us as well. So all of you are welcome. It will be a warm-up for the much larger forum. And then finally, I wanted to invite all of council to attend the Early Childhood Partnership of Adams County Breakfast on October 23rd from 7:30 to 8:50 a.m. at Stonebrook Manor. I believe that the outside agency funding committee did approve a bronze sponsorship, which I believe comes with 5 to 8 seats. So if you're interested in joining, please let me know. That's all for me. Thank you.
Great. I only had one comment this evening, and it was actually around commercial property landscaping. And so I've been noticing some excessive weeds in some commercial properties. And I guess my question is, how are those issues addressed? Do you report those to the app, or how, if it's a commercial property, what do we do?
You can use the app, or you can send an email to myself or to Brooke and give us the address. I think it's important for the public to understand that sometimes I hear, well, I see this and I drive by and nothing's being done. And so if you report it via the app and we can get it or send us an email, we can get it logged into the system. And then we can let you know if efforts already being made on that particular property, or if we haven't noticed that property owner, then we'll go ahead and do that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Julie and I are going to be hosting our ward meeting on October 5th from 10 to noon. And we have extended an invitation for anything, just to give an update on the library. So again, that'll be October 5th from 10 to noon at the Justice Center. And then this is actually just a request to send it to all of council, but I think we're coming up on 1 year on the mattress ordinance, which it would be October 1st for disposal. Would it be possible to get some stats as to how many mattresses we collected and by which form, like how many people have taken them and dropped them off at M&O, how many have we
Yes.
picked up? And then I guess my flip side conversation, a couple months ago, we had a conversation about mattresses being left at properties. I think we were gonna check on a number as to how many are being reported and left at, like, the Malley Center, just kind of like abandoned at commercial places. I think we were checking on a number, and I don't recall ever getting that.
Okay, maybe I was confused. So you want a number of how many mattresses are left at that center in particular, commercial?
Just around the city, because I had
That we pick up?
That we pick,
Okay,
or that have been turned into the app, or issues being reported that they've been abandoned somewhere.
Okay.
Because I'm seeing a handful of mattresses really being left around commercial properties. That
Okay.
It's definitely kind of one of those things that, oh, I'm gonna dump it over there at their dumpster. I know I rant about my dumpster at my office because we always get all the hot water tanks, but along Washington, if you take a drive down, there are an awful lot of mattresses hanging out at dumpsters. That it's just really unfair to property owners of those commercial spots. And I'm just curious if we have any method of tracking that they've been turned in for code enforcement, which then goes against that commercial property. I'm just trying to get a sense of the abandoned mattresses and if we have any tracking on that.
I will follow up on that piece. I think I followed up on the usage of our existing dumpsters here and then over at Northwest Open Space. I think that was the piece that I emailed to council, but not the commercial.
I'm just
Okay.
curious if there's any number that we have through code enforcement that identifies that it's been reported or we've issued a notice to commercial properties around mattresses, because we probably should in some sense because they are hanging out their property, but it's an unfortunate thing that they have to now pay to remove that and then hit us as tenants.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And that's all.
Yes, so the Youth Commission met, and they're struggling a little bit with membership, with some seniors moving forward. So they are having an information night on September 17th at 7 p.m. They really would like as many youth as possible to come. It's pretty broad as far as middle school and high school. I think their original language says 13, but kids can start attending as early as 11 and 12. They can't be official board members till they're 13, but really wanting to just engage our kids. And just a reminder that you don't have to attend Northglenn High School. You can live in the city of Northglenn, or you can attend an Adams 12 five-star school. So it's a little broader than just our city, and so just to remind residents of that. So if you have a niece or a nephew or a grandchild or, you know, a child of your own that you'd like to recommend, they have planned a really fun, engaging night on the 17th. So lots of games, lots of pizza, lots of fun. So make sure that you know, if you know of anybody, send them that direction. I attended the Anything fundraiser, and that is, I can't say enough about that organization. I spend a lot of time with my personal children there, and they just do amazing work for our residents as well. I sent everyone on council a flyer called the Adams 12 five-star Schools Web of Safety. You know how I get about school safety, and so I thought I'd share this with you. This came to parents, but it's really interesting. They're doing 2 nights, October 2nd and November 6th. October 2nd, they're talking about the physical safety, so talking about building access and systems to keep the school buildings secure. If that's something that you're, you know, geeky about like me, you could go to that. November 6th, they are having social emotional learning and safety, which they're going to talk about the curriculum that they have for their social emotional learning, the supports that they're providing at all grade levels, and some mental health supports, and that's really important. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I did send you the flyer, and that flyer went out to every Adams 12 parent, so they should have received that as well. And then the outside agency funding committee did meet. We took grant requests. We had quite a few organizations do presentations for the money that we had. So we awarded a Precious Child $5,000, Almost Home $4,000, Immaculate Heart of Mary Food Bank $6,000, and the Senior Hub $5,000. We had $20,000 to spend, and Joyce and I had lots of conversation about we would like to request more money. So per your email, we'd like to increase that to $25,000 for grants if possible. So squeaking out another $5,000 there. We have so many organizations that apply, and so they applied for more than that. We just took our $20,000 and divided it out among the award winners. And then for sponsorships, we're doing a $300 sponsorship for the Early Childhood Partnership Breakfast, but I don't know if that is bronze level, and I don't know how many tickets goes with that. All I wrote down was $300. So.
I don't recall either.
Do you happen to know?
It includes 8 seats at the table.
8 seats for the breakfast at the early childhood thing? Okay. And then the Adams County Commissioners Career Expo is November 19th. And we're sponsoring that at $1,000, and that's 6 attendees can attend that. And I think that's mostly city staff that attend that. That's all I have.
That's great.
There you go.
How about students who are being homeschooled or online schooled? Are they eligible to be part of the
That's a really good question. I would think so, yes.
I think they're included with all of that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, I think
yeah,
so.
because they're part of the district.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but I mean, we have some homeschoolers out there, we have some online schoolers. And this week, get them into the community and do social skills. It's hard to get social skills at home only.
It's a great group. I recommend that everybody join.
I'm with you. I don't have anything else. Becky?
I can't believe that nobody mentioned that my favorite event in the world is coming up, Pirate Fest. It's, yeah. So it's coming around the corner. It's the 20th and the 21st. I was looking at the calendar, and it looks like we don't have we have a study session, but we don't have a full-fledged session. So I just want to invite everybody to come. Pretty excited about it. You will find me in the rum tent this year and visiting throughout the event. So I'm really excited about it, and I hope that everybody comes out and sees us. One of the things I really like about this event is that it brings people from all over the state, and this is something that we're actually really quite known at, and we are one of the top 5 pirate festivals in Colorado. So yeah, I mean, this is a big deal for my friends. So I'm totally excited with this. The other thing that I had was that we have our Ward 2 meeting, and it is September 18th, and we're gonna do it over at Larson Park, Joyce and I. Ice cream will be served, and we're gonna have the block party trailer. And our topics of conversation are the rec center and the civic master plan. Joyce is gonna talk about St. Stephen's, right?
No, Brooke is.
Brooke is? Okay, great. And then the development of Carl's Farm. So that's gonna be on the 18th from 5:30 to 7:30, so I invite everybody to come out. Heather,
Yes.
I need help. Well, actually, the residents of Ward 2 need help over on my side. With the end line coming through and the testing and everything like this, we're having a lot of animals come into that side of town. Possums, let's see, we've seen possums, we've had foxes. I was driving home the other day and I had a whole possum family just, trot out in the street. And I know that I don't know what we can do. But the neighbors, they're getting in their yards, they're digging up their backyards, they're getting into their trash. And of course, it's just really gotten bad over the course of the last few months as the testing's going on and it's really getting noisier over there.
Right.
And I don't know from a city standpoint if we can do anything or not.
There are some things we can do. Recently, I spoke to a resident. I believe you relate, well, maybe, no, it was somebody else who sent me this resident who has a concern regarding raccoons in Ward 2. So there's quite a bit of education we can do, and that's the first thing we need to start with in terms of encouraging residents not to keep trash bins out full of trash because that's a natural attraction for certain type of wildlife, raccoons in particular. I think possums fall in that category. I think what would be most helpful for staff is if you have specific properties, I can have an animal officer go out and talk with residents and help try to troubleshoot their specific properties. But we find that the primary things are there's a food source. I've also heard complaints that some residents are actually feeding the raccoons or whatnot by setting out peanuts or whatnot, and that's a huge do not do that.
But we can't do anything about that.
Well,
right?
so depending on the type of wildlife, we can try to trap them and then relocate them. It depends on the type of wildlife, and I'm not the best person to be speaking to what type of wildlife and what we can or cannot do within according to the Division of Wildlife regulations. We do work in partnership with DOW on certain things, but and they have an emergency on-call number that we've given to residents. It starts with making sure that residents are keeping their property such that there's not natural attractors. And then if it continues to be an issue, we can look at other responses, such as what I'm working with the police department on with the raccoon situation. My understanding is they're living in our drainage way area. So there's also the public property versus private property dynamic. We do encourage residents to outreach to pest control when appropriate, depending on the type of animal that we're talking about. So there's a lot of different things we can do to help educate residents and help them respond to the problem. I think it would be helpful if you send those via the CRM system or direct them to me, and I'll get them out to the appropriate department.
Okay, perfect. I did
Yeah.
notice the possums going into the sewer thing,
Uh-huh.
you know?
Yeah,
So if they're
that's
in
pretty
there
common.
with everybody else, that should be a party. My other thing, the only other thing I have is, can we get this keyboard replaced?
Your keyboard?
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
It doesn't work.
No, it's space bars. That's all I have, thank you.
Joyce?
Yes, the only thing, well, I've attended a few of these same things that everybody else has, but the one thing that I want to mention is the next event that the Historic Commission is holding is the house tour on October 13th. And that will be a tour of Pearl Mac homes throughout the city. And we're still looking for residents to volunteer if they want to open their home and have people a tour and see, you know, how Pearl Mac homes were built and what you've done to them. We're going to be starting at Stonehawker and then touring through the city, and then we'll be ending over at Deza Estates. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But we are looking for residents to be part of that tour. So if you are interested, please let me know, and we'll get you signed up. So.
Lauren?
I just, we had the Ward 4 meeting, and it was a big turnout to me. I was overwhelmed, but it was really good, and I just, what did I write down? The speeding and the homelessness was a big topic, but what I want to say is, there has to be a way that we can do something, and I'm excited to have the conversation at a later date. But the staff and everybody that attended is amazing to me, I think. You are so knowledgeable and helpful, and it was really amazing to me. So I thank you all. That's it.
You did good.
Joanne?
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
City Manager Dyer?
Thank you, Mayor Escabel. Heather Grady asked me to remind council to RSVP, if you have not already, for Celebrate Northglenn by Friday. Again, Celebrate Northglenn is open to the community on Saturday, September 28th from 4 to 7 p.m. at our Recreation Center. Only other thing that I'd share, I shared this via email, but I will be purchasing my first home in Northglenn next week. We'll be moving in and out next week, so bear with me. I'll be in and out of the office, but appreciate the support and really look forward to being a homeowner in the city of Northglenn.
Yay.
Yay.
That's awesome.
Corey?
And don't hold the ward position against me, okay? I found my forever home
Where?
in
four?
Ward 3.
Oh, in Ward 3? I like those.
I can't beat that, so nothing tonight.
Well, when I was looking at the calendar, Becky pointed out, we don't have another, official meeting for a while, and so Jason's not in the room, but we need to acknowledge Joanna and her 20 years of service to the city, because that's a huge deal, and so, congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you for being so awesome
Thank you,
that's a long
Joanna.
time,
Thank you.
so.
We'll have an official recognition,
Yeah.
addition award for it.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing else? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
I know.
I know it.
Follow football. I have no idea who's playing when.